If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing stories every day. The house was unusually quiet that Saturday afternoon. The kind of silence that almost hums in your ears. Robert, my husband, had left early for his weekend golf game, and I assumed his son, Liam, was out with friends. That meant I finally had the place to myself, something that didn't happen often. I curled up on the living room sofa with a cup of tea and an old mystery novel, letting the sunlight filter through the curtains in gentle golden stripes. The world felt peaceful, ordinary, until it didn't. Somewhere upstairs, a sound broke the silence, a faint rhythmic thumping followed by a muffled voice. I frowned. It didn't sound like music or laughter. It was uneven, tense, like someone pacing or moving things around. I tried to ignore it at first. Maybe Liam had come home early. Maybe he'd dropped something. But after a few minutes, the sounds continued, sharper this time, like someone struggling. A flicker of worry stirred in my chest. I placed my book down and listened carefully. Then, curiosity and concern mixing in equal parts, I climbed the stairs. Liam's door was slightly ajar, which immediately struck me as strange. He was usually private, the kind of teenager who kept his door closed even when doing homework. The faint noises continued, but they had changed, now quieter, almost like muffled sobs or whispers. I hesitated, hand hovering near the doorknob. Something in me said walk away, respect his space. But another voice, the one that had learned to sense when something was wrong, told me not to ignore it. I pushed the door open a few inches. The room was dim, curtains half drawn. Liam sat on the edge of his bed, hunched over, his shoulders shaking slightly. A few sheets of paper were scattered on the floor. When he turned, startled by the sound of the door, I saw his eyes, red, swollen, and full of something between fear and exhaustion. Liam, I said softly, are you okay? He quickly wiped his face and stood, almost too fast. I'm fine, he said. His voice cracked. I thought you were out. I noticed the papers at his feet. They weren't random. Sketches, notes, photos, all jumbled together. One photo in particular caught my attention before he could scoop it up. It was of Robert, his father, standing beside another woman. The date scribbled on the back was just 3 months old. Where did you get that? I asked before I could stop myself. He froze, eyes wide. The silence that followed felt like it might shatter both of us. Liam sat back down slowly, his hands trembling as he gathered the papers. I wasn't supposed to know, he whispered. But I found them. In Dad's office. My pulse quickened. Found what? He looked up at me then, and there was something heartbreakingly adult in his gaze. A mix of betrayal and pain no teenager should carry. The messages. The pictures. He's been seeing someone else. The air left my lungs. The room seemed smaller, darker. My husband, the man I had trusted, defended, and believed in, was having an affair. And his son had found out before I did. I sat down on the edge of the bed, too stunned to speak. Liam's voice broke the silence. I didn't mean to find it. I was looking for a charger in his drawer last week, and there was a folder on his computer named Invoices. It wasn't invoices. It was her. He swallowed hard. Her name is Claire. They've been meeting while he's at his meetings. I wanted to tell him to stop, to protect him from the truth, but it was too late. The words poured out like a flood. He looked so small then, despite being nearly grown, his shoulders slumped, eyes distant. I didn't want to tell you. I thought maybe he'd stop. But he hasn't. The weight of what he'd been carrying alone hit me all at once. I reached out instinctively, placing my hand gently over his. His skin was cold, trembling. You shouldn't have had to carry this, Liam, I said softly. This isn't your burden. He shook his head, jaw tightening. He's my dad. But he's lying to both of us. I don't even know who he is anymore. There was pain in every word. I could feel the betrayal bleeding through his voice, a mirror of my own. I wanted to comfort him, but also scream, demand answers that weren't here. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, we'll figure this out. Together. That seemed to calm him. His eyes softened a little. I thought you'd hate me, he murmured. Never, I said, my voice steady now. You did the right thing. We sat in silence for a while, the air heavy with unspoken emotions. I studied the photo again. It wasn't just a casual picture, it looked intimate. Robert's arm around Claire's waist, both smiling at the camera. It wasn't recent but recent enough. Liam noticed where my gaze lingered. "There's more," he whispered. He stood and walked to his desk, opening a drawer. From inside he pulled a small black notebook, worn at the edges. "I think Dad's been planning something," he said, handing it to me. The notebook was full of notes, addresses, meeting times, receipts, hotel reservations. But near the end one page stood out. "Tell her after the trip. She'll understand. I need a clean break." My stomach turned. Tell who? Me? Or her? Liam watched me silently, his face pale. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I didn't know. Part of me wanted to confront Robert immediately, to end the lies once and for all. Another part wanted to wait, to understand why, to protect Liam from another emotional storm. But above all, I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. I stood up slowly. "First, we don't tell him you found this. Promise me." He nodded. "Okay." "Second," I said, "we're going to find out the truth. Every part of it. No more secrets." Something shifted in his eyes. Not fear this time, but relief. For the first time in months, maybe years, we were on the same side. That night, after Liam went to bed, I sat in the living room, staring at the fireplace while the clock ticked loudly. Robert would be home soon. The notebook sat on the table in front of me, a quiet bomb waiting to go off. I knew once I asked, everything would change. Our marriage, our family, our home. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. When I finally heard the front door open and Robert's voice call out, I felt my heartbeat in my throat. "Hey honey," he said cheerfully, walking in with his golf bag slung over his shoulder. "You wouldn't believe the game we had today." I looked at him, really looked, and saw someone I no longer recognized. "Robert," I said quietly, "we need to talk." Robert dropped his golf bag by the door, and looked at me with that easy smile I once found reassuring. But tonight, the sight of it made my stomach tighten. He noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" "Sit down, Robert." My own voice surprised me. Quiet, steady, almost detached. He blinked, puzzled, and sank into the armchair opposite me. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint ticking of the hallway clock. Finally, I slid the black notebook across the coffee table. "Recognize it?" His eyes flickered downward, then back to me. "Where did you get that?" "From your desk." That was only half true, but I wasn't about to involve Liam. He exhaled slowly, fingers drumming against his knee. "You shouldn't go through my things." "Then tell me why it exists," I said, tapping the open page, the one that read "Tell her after the trip." "Who's her, Robert?" For a moment he looked almost relieved, as if a confession might free him. Then something changed in his eyes. Fear, maybe guilt, maybe calculation. "It's not what you think," he began. "Claire she was a business partner. We were working on a property deal together. The notes were about ending that arrangement." His explanation sounded rehearsed. I had spent years reading his moods. Tonight every pause, every shift in tone screamed lie. "Property deals don't come with hotel receipts," I said. He froze. I watched a muscle tighten in his jaw. "All right," he admitted. "It got complicated. But it's over." It didn't mean anything. The words landed like stones. So it did happen. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. I stood, pacing the room. "You let your son think he was crazy. He saw you sneaking out, heard the phone calls. He's been carrying that secret alone." Robert's head snapped up. "Liam knows?" The panic in his voice was instant and genuine. "Yes. Because you left evidence everywhere." He rubbed his temples. "I never wanted him involved. He's been under pressure since his mother died." "Don't you dare blame this on grief," I cut in. "You're the adult. You created this." He lowered his voice, almost pleading. "You have to believe me, Evelyn. There's more to it than an affair." I folded my arms. "Then explain." He hesitated so long I thought he wouldn't speak. Then in a hoarse whisper, "Claire isn't who you think she is. She's a private investigator." That stopped me cold. A what? She was hired before I even met you, he said. By Liam's grandparents. They never trusted me after their daughter passed. They thought I was mismanaging the inheritance she left for Liam. Claire was sent to look into my finances. He gave a bitter laugh. And somewhere along the way, we crossed a line. It started as business, ended as a mistake. I stared at him, trying to process the collision of betrayal and revelation. So you're saying the affair began with surveillance? Yes, he said quietly. And she still reports to them. That's what the clean break note means. I was going to end it before they found out. It sounded absurd, yet the details fit in unsettling ways. Robert had indeed been arguing with his late wife's parents about control of the estate. I had overheard fragments of those heated calls. Still, one question burned in me. Did you love her? His answer came too fast. No. I looked at him for a long moment. Then why do you look like a man mourning something? He didn't respond. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the windows. The silence inside the room pressed heavier until footsteps creaked above us. Liam's room. Robert's eyes flicked upward. He heard all that, didn't he? I went to the stairs. The hallway was dim, only the light from below spilling upward. At the landing, Liam stood frozen, halfway between hiding and confessing. Come downstairs, I said gently. He obeyed, each step hesitant. When he reached the living room, his eyes darted from me to his father. Dad, he started. Why didn't you just tell us? Robert rubbed his face, suddenly looking older. Because I didn't want to lose either of you. I thought if I could fix it quietly, maybe. You lied to everyone, Liam said, voice trembling. To Mom's memory, to me, to her. He nodded toward me. Robert's expression softened. You're right. For the first time, there was no defense left in him. Before any of us could speak again, the doorbell rang. We all froze. Robert frowned, checking his watch. At this hour? He opened the door, and there she was. Claire. Seeing her in person felt surreal. She wasn't glamorous, just tired, holding a manila envelope in one hand. We need to talk, she said quietly. All of us. Robert stepped aside reluctantly. I could sense Liam stiffen beside me. Claire set the envelope on the coffee table. The investigation's over, she said. I thought you should both see the results. She opened the flap and slid out a stack of documents, bank statements, letters, photographs. This proves Robert wasn't stealing from the trust, she said. In fact, he was adding money to it. He's been saving most of his income for Liam's future. I blinked. What? Robert looked away. I wasn't supposed to tell anyone. It was the only promise I made to your grandparents. Liam's confusion melted into guilt. So you weren't hiding money. You were protecting it? Robert nodded slowly. Yes. But I lied about everything else. For a moment, none of us spoke. The truth had shifted everything again. Claire broke the silence. I'm leaving town tonight. I just wanted to end this properly. You both deserve peace. Then she turned to me. He really does love you, Evelyn. He's just terrible at honesty. With that, she was gone. The three of us stood there, surrounded by evidence of both betrayal and devotion, not sure which weighed heavier. Liam went upstairs quietly. Robert and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, staring at the envelope. Finally, he said, I'll sleep in the guest room. I nodded. Words felt useless. That night I lay awake listening to the familiar creaks of the house. Everything looked the same, yet nothing was. The secret upstairs had forced all of us to face who we really were. The smell of coffee pulled me from uneasy sleep. When I came downstairs, Robert was already dressed, suit and tie, suitcase by the door. I'm taking a few days, he said quietly, to give you space. I poured a cup of coffee and stared out the window. The world looked painfully ordinary, sunlight, birds, the neighbor's sprinkler hissing on the lawn. Do you want me to come back? He asked. I turned to face him. I don't know yet. He nodded, accepting the uncertainty like a sentence. Then he left. A week passed before I went into the guest room to change the sheets. On the nightstand sat a sealed envelope addressed to Evelyn and Liam. Inside was a letter. I know I've failed both of you in different ways. But everything I did, wrong as it was, came from fear of losing family again. If there's still any piece of trust left, use the account numbers inside to access the fund. It's yours together. Maybe it can build something honest, even if I couldn't. Air. Liam read it beside me, silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Do you think he'll come back?" I folded the letter carefully. If he does, we'll decide then. Months later, the house was quiet again, but not with the same fragile peace as before. Liam had started therapy, and I had returned to work part-time. The envelope remained in a drawer, unopened since that day. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Liam said, "I'm glad you came upstairs that day." I looked at him. "Even after everything it caused?" He nodded. "Secrets don't disappear just because we close the door." His words stayed with me. The truth had broken us, but it had also stopped the slow erosion of lies. Sometimes, survival begins exactly where comfort ends. Every family hides rooms that stay locked for years, rooms built from silence, fear, or pride. But the moment one door creaks open, even by accident, everything inside must face the light. Some truths destroy, others rebuild. The question is never whether we want to know, but whether we can live with what we find once we do. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more human drama stories about the secrets that shape us.